A couple of years ago during the budget process, Governor Tony Evers proposed to the legislature significant increase in funding for an Office of Sustainable and Clean Energy. He wanted the legislature to give him a fortune to pursue green energy needs. The legislature didn't give it to him. Evers has gotten around that. The information that we're going to share with you comes from an investigation from a local organization called the Center for Investigative Oversight, which has put out a lengthy report on this. Now, for those of you who follow government only casually, the governor proposes a budget. Only the legislature has to pass it. The governor's a Democrat, the legislature's Republican. So Evers wanted to have a ton of money for green energy initiatives, and he wants to have a big office in his agency to pursue this. The legislature doesn't fund it. Evers got the money anyway. How'd that happen? Now, I'm going to tell you, but I want you to think about it for a second because I think that makes it easier for you to retain this. I'm going to give you the answer to this indirectly. Think Zuckerbucks. What were Zuckerbucks? In the 2020 election, the organization established by Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg gave tens of millions of dollars to big cities around the country in swing states, and the cities tended to have high Democratic voter margins. So in Wisconsin, the money went to Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha, Green Bay, and so on. Republicans have been complaining about it ever since. Zuckerberg gave a fortune and assigned zillions of staffers to do voter mobilization in these cities, and they literally worked with the cities. The city of Milwaukee took money from Zuckerberg, and you had Zuckerberg employees sitting there in city government trying to increase voter turnout. Now, the people who defend this are saying, well, why would trying to get people to turn out to vote be a bad thing? Because Zuckerberg only gave the money to cities in which the overwhelming majority of voters are Democratic. Zuckerberg was not going to put this money into get out the vote efforts in Waupaca. Waupaca is in, I think it might be Waupaca County. It's an extremely Republican area. It's the area between, say, Green Bay and Shawano. Very Republican voter area out there. Zuckerberg did not Zuckerberg was not going to put a ton of money into get out the vote efforts in Washington County, another extremely Republican county. So you end up stacking the deck by government pouring millions in. Now go back to Tony Evers. Maybe you figured out the answer. The legislature won't give him the money for these green energy initiatives, yet he got the money anyway. According to the report by the Center for Investigative Oversight, Evers received an enormous grant from an organization chaired by CNN founder Ted Turner, who way back in the day was conservative, but in his elderly years became an extreme liberal. And he used his massive finances to create all of these nonprofits that pursue a number of different liberal initiatives. According to the report by the Center for Investigative Oversight, the Evers administration received an enormous grant from an entity called the UNF, the United Nations Foundation. It partners with Ted Turner's organization to hand out these types of grants. According to the report, during a legislative budget hearing, when Republican lawmakers asked the source of the funding, the Evers administration didn't give straight answers, but were vague in their responses. This organization, the Center for Investigative Oversight, says that it's run the numbers and it's been able to prove and document that the money came from this outside agency. All right. Here's the issue. Should government be able to collect money from independent, non-governmental authorities that choose to simply donate the money? It's a new phenomenon. When's the last time you heard of a conservative organization donating money to government? Our side doesn't believe in taxes. We believe in smaller government. Doesn't much happen. But if you're a leftist organization that wants to influence politics, part of it is elect the people that are on your side. But let's imagine you have a state that's divided government. They can't get funding for the things that you, the leftist organization, wants to do. So you give them the money. And you end up, therefore, having policy done, even though it was never approved by the other branch of government. We have a state agency that's staffed using money from a leftist organization when the Republicans didn't want to staff that agency. So you end up with liberal policy being bought by the leftist organization. Were this done on the other side? Were this done, trying to imagine, I'll come up with the ultimate scenario. Imagine, I was thinking of the NRA or the pro-lifers, but that's almost too brazen of an example. Imagine some farm organization that had deep pockets, gave out a huge grant, the purpose of which was to protect farmers from being investigated or prosecuted for allowing runoff to go off their farmlands or something. That's not a great example, but you get the drift on what I have here. The lefties have been doing this with other stuff as well. Criminal justice is a big thing where they bankroll all of these efforts to create more diversionary programs. Republican lawmakers won't put the money into the programs. Outside third-party organizations come in and try to do it. It's very, very dangerous. With regard to politics in the state of Wisconsin, we have tried to ban outside money like Zuckerbucks coming in. Tony Evers keeps vetoing the legislation. So what you end up with is liberal arms of government end up with enormous amounts of money, even if elected officials don't give it to them. But the conservative arms of government, should any actually exist anymore, they don't have anybody to give money to them. And since most conservatives aren't big believers that government is the answer to anything, it's not like any conservative organizations are going to give money to government to do much of anything, because most of us think that government is not the solution, but it's the problem. Lefties, however, get everything they want through government. Anyway, it's an interesting story, and it helps explain how, even if you don't have control of the governmental purse strings, you can still then, the other area where this kind of thing happens all the time is public universities. They get massive grant money, and almost always the grant money goes to fund some incredible lefty thing.